Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Thulani and I am with Roots of Justice, and you are tuning in to our expanded vision for peaceable communities. That's what we're going to be talking about over the next little while. I am going to, well, I've told you what my name is. I'm Thulani. I'm a trainer with Roots of Justice, and I'm going to turn this over to Maati, and she's going to facilitate the next part for us.
Hotep, peace everyone. Yes, I am Maati, Yvonne Platts, also a facilitator with Roots of Justice. And in the house tonight, I have two young ladies who I'm going to each let introduce themselves and just tell us a little bit about yourselves, organization or association you have, or what brings you here this evening to this topic.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Gill-Wilson, pronouns she, her. I am a freshman at Cheney University, the first in the mother HBCU. I am with an organization called Herb Ed, and I'm the executive director of advocacy and programs there. I'm also with an organization called Collective Climb, and there I am a part of the I apologize, the Restorative Community Project program. I'm sorry. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nurah. I am a junior. I go to Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York, but I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, where I've been a community organizer and political organizer since I was a freshman in high school. And I am a March for Our Lives alum. I've worked on their national team and their statewide team, doing different types of programming and lobbying around gun violence and gun safety advocacy. And so that's why I'm here today.
Great, thank you both again. So, Nurah, I guess maybe I'll begin with you first. In your opinion, how interconnected are issues of youth violence and the broader societal norms regarding conflict resolution?
Definitely. So I think that they're very much intertwined, especially when we look at things like the school to prison pipeline and how we give youth punishment and who we give the punishment to. Specifically, like looking at how we give Black and Brown students different kinds of punishment versus white students for the same behavior. And the ACLU has a study on this, as well as the American Bar Association, linking the school to prison pipeline to violence as kids get older and grow out of the school system, and how detrimental it is to someone's trajectory of life. And all of those things kind of deal with the bigger and broader things that happen outside of schools, like things that go on in our communities and in home lives. Having a two-parent household versus living in a single parent household, or being raised in an area with extreme amount of resources and wealth versus being raised in a low income community where things are scarce, more food deserts, less resources like hospitals, open libraries. Those things are all detrimental to how violence is shaped and how accustomed to violence youth are.
Great, thank you. And if you could just double check your connection, we went a little wonky on us, make sure that we can hear you. We don't want to miss another word that you have to say. Thanks. So, Erin, do I need to repeat the question?
Wait, let's let Nurah, please. Let's let Nurah see if her connect. Because what kind of connection are you using?
These are AirPods. Can you hear me better now if I talk like this?
Yeah. I think when you were talking, you were moving, and I think your hair was getting in the
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, cool. We got that squared away. Thank you, Nurah. Okay, sorry to break in on that, but I just wanted to make sure that we had Nurah in there pretty good.
Erin, would you like to weigh in on that question? How interconnected are these issues of youth violence and the broader societal norms regarding conflict resolution?
Yes, I would like to weigh in on this question. I agree with everything that was already said. I wanted to add on and say, I think some of the discipline tactics being used in certain households and within school communities often play a part in influencing the violence. When we're upset at school, or when we're told we can't talk or we can't engage with our friends and things like that. And as children, we should be able to like express our, like have our freedom and allow it to be expressed in the ways that we want to, like engaging with our friends and things like that. I also believe that our social media networks play a huge part in it as well, like every day. And then moving on in the future, like AI has like a huge part in technology, a huge part in our daily life. And so being as though young people are allowed, and I'm saying like young people as in middle school students are allowed to be on Instagram and social media at such a young age, they're seeing things that they shouldn't have been exposed to, and all of the violence in the world, and also inflation and food insecurity and jealousy, and also plays a part in it. And it all has to do with like the lack of resources in the Black and African American community, personally, in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Maati, did you want to weigh in on those?
Well, I too, I think about the home and the relationships that we have beginning right there at the home, and how they extend into our school and into our community, and what practices have we had to even view role models or other solutions or other ways of responding to anger or to dealing with conflict. So again, what we see, what we learn, what we feel is all connected to what we do. So I am in alignment with their young sisters, indeed.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for sharing all that you have so far. I'm from Philadelphia, um, and used to party at Cheney back in the day. but growing up in Philadelphia, some of those things that you're named have been part of my life experience. I mean, when I grew up in Philadelphia, Philadelphia was a big boxing city. It was a gang city also. So I was a member of a gang, and in my home, because of the neighborhood that we lived in, and because violence was on the list of things to use for conflict resolution, right? It was on the list of things to use, and it was my mother. My mother was the one who actually gave me my first weapon and showed me how to use it. But it wasn't a gun, but it was because our neighborhoods were not proliferating with guns the way they are now. But so what I had a parent who was recognizing the neighborhood that we lived in, the society that we lived in, and she was doing what she felt like she needed to do to teach her son how to survive. So I suspect that much of that is still happening within our communities. Anybody?
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
I 100% agree. I'm from Philadelphia as well. So the gun violence and the homicide in my city and my hometown is off the charts. And so I hear often, like just in day-to-day conversations with like people around my age or even younger, sadly, that they feel not that, oh, they want to be a part of the streets and they want to entertain this lifestyle because they feel like they want to be cool or like a part of whatever they're seeing on social media. Is really a lot of people are feared for their lives and like they're trying to protect themselves. Like they don't want to go to certain places. People don't go to the park no more. People don't go to libraries. People don't want to feel comfortable going to certain schools because of all of the violence that's happening. And a lot of people, like, it's in our face. Everybody sees it. It's really just about coming up with some tactics that'll be actually helpful and impactful and not just being said. So it is a protection thing, I think, as well.
How about you, Yvonne?
Understand from speaking and sharing with a lot of young people, this thing of not wanting to be soft, because what I'm supposed to do, walk away, tell somebody, is what we tell them in school, but they're like, nah, that's soft. And learning appropriate ways to deal with and handle conflict hasn't been openly and widely shared with them. And so they feel that the only thing that they have to do is to retaliate. It's the fact, because if you can't be looking soft, not in the city anyway, somebody would always be coming after you. You have to have your neck on swivel, as they say. Mhm.
Yeah. Are you a city based person? Nurah?
I am. I grew up right off of Campbellton Road in Atlanta. So, but also just my brother lives near the Old Bear Stadium, which, if you don't know, like that area of Atlanta is still predominantly Black, even though most of the city is getting gentrified right now. That side of the city is still predominantly Black. And just seeing the young boys in that neighborhood kind of posing with weapons, or like just doing it in the middle of the street because they think it's cool, or like spraying because like it seems cool, and not knowing that like there are people in the houses, because like, and young children in houses, like I have nieces and they can recount to me like hearing gunshots or like ducking from bullets. And I think that violence is also normalized from a young age, especially for Black children. And it's almost seen by the media and by politicians as something that's supposed to happen to us. And especially like working in gun violence prevention for so long and seeing how the white students I was working with were being treated, and how their issues of dealing with mass shootings, which are sad, which are bad, but seeing how they were treated and how their trauma was responded to versus how Black and brown children who had been doing the work or who had been living in these kind of experiences were treated, is uncanny. And I think that speaks a lot to the way that policy also plays a part in how we condition our youth for violence, and how we condition youth to solve conflicts. Like even so, like with police, and police violence, like we tell our Black boys and we tell sometimes our Black girls like not to talk back, to keep your hands visible. That all goes into like how we deal with conflicts in our communities, and how we deal with conflicts in the household as well.
Yo, I don't want to answer this question longer than I have to, but can I please piggyback off of what she said, please?
Please.
I think a huge problem as well is the resources in our community and the lack and our quality of education too in our community, especially in the Philadelphia school district system. We, from a very young age, Black and brown children, specifically boys, almost every Black boy I know grew up want to be a basketball player. They don't grow up want to be a basketball player, and if not that, maybe a rapper eventually once they get older, because they're seeing other Black men who are older than them, and they're looking up to them, and they're seeing those things that they're doing. However, it is nice to have those dreams and stuff. Realistically speaking, not every single Black boy who's going to grow up will be a basketball player. Not every single Black boy who wants to be a basketball player or a football player or any type of sports has the resources. Like even the little league teams that we have, you got to pay so much money to do it. What about those kids who can't afford to put their children into those sports? They can't do that. In school, we're not taught that we can we can own businesses. We're not taught that we can run things, and we can do all of these other things that our white counterparts in their education system are taught, and it's extremely unfair. So when we grow up and then we see things in the media and and that's another thing as well, like the news channels and in the media, they can twist and turn any single event they want to. And it's all about the tone too. If you tell somebody one thing in a certain tone and tell it to the same exact thing in a different tone, it's two different types of messages. So when they're putting all of these things in the media about us and just making us look as if we're only rappers, we're only sports people, we're only good at football and basketball and things like that is extremely, it creates it allows us, it makes us be pessimistic and is really unfair. And I think education is where we need to start. Like, it's so much we need to learn. And so when we result as our Black men resort to things like drugs and things like violence and stuff to make them feel like they have a place or a belonging in this world is looked down upon. It should have started way from the beginning. As a child, we should have been provided with those resources. I'm sorry, y'all, that was long.
Yeah, please don't apologize.
Yes, that's
You know,
completely fine. That's why you are here. You
Right,
want
that's why you're here. That is why we invited you. How about you, or anything to add?
I mean, I think that like Erin hit the nail on the head. Like, I know when I was growing up, I feel like I wanted to be like a singer or something because I felt like, why do good in school when I could like go into entertainment and make this much money or whatever? And I think that's like what a lot of people were thinking. Going to like a predominantly Black high school, like a lot of people did not choose to go to college, or they chose to go into the military because, to be honest with you, like going to college was not something that they really presented us as an option. Like, they gave us options of like trade school, which is fine, but comparing this to like the white side of the city or other white school districts, they were not presenting colleges as an option. Most of the colleges that I applied to, they told me was a reach and that I probably wouldn't get in. And then I got into all of them. And it's like our success is also not celebrated in the way that like white students are. And I think that has a lot to do with all the other things that are going on, like politically, like them canceling affirmative action, them trying to pull Black history out of schools in Florida, them trying to ban AP psychology. It's just all the things and the way that we think about things come down to education, like Erin was saying. And I think that's definitely where we need to start, but I don't think that's where our legislators are going to take us at all.
I guess I want to know.
Sorry. Go ahead, Maati.
I mean, since both of y'all are in this, and you've made very clear about the systemic contributions into this, and in the work that you have been doing, what have you found to be the most effective or the most helpful in helping to address some of the violence that's been witnessed around you in the work that you've been doing?
So I can speak to this as a gun safety advocate and as someone that's been working in gun violence prevention and focusing on Black and Brown communities. Peer-to-peer relationships or having like a violence interrupter is probably the best way to interrupt violence and to keep violence interrupted. So for instance, if there's like a dispute between two people, instead of them, you know, kind of fighting it out or pulling out their guns, having someone that's trusted in the community, having a conversation with them about the trajectory of their life after they commit this crime or after they do this thing has been really impactful and something that I've been very honored to work on with different communities around the country. And then also just talking to my peers that I know from like high school. Like I remember I was reading in the news, like one of my classmates had just gotten arrested for like murder of two teenagers. And it was so surreal to me, but like talking to some of the other Black boys from my high school about like why they feel the need to commit violent acts and what the influence is also like a big step. I feel like most people don't really think to have conversations about the root cause of why they're trying to commit the act that they're trying to commit. But talking and kind of having a space and holding a space for people to really express their thoughts and their feelings about the things that go on around them has probably been the most impactful.
Thank you.
I believe my professor told me yesterday, you'll know if you want to know the end, look at the beginning. So I believe everything in our childhood shapes who we are today. So like if you look at the small things, like the way we're disciplined, when we're frustrated or we're upset, we're in trouble, we just get hit or something. Like we aren't really given a chance to explain how we feel. And if we're crying, oh, stop crying if I give you something to cry for, you know? So things like if we're upset at a friend or something like that, or if someone, not even just Black people, like if someone is just upset at a friend and they weren't taught how to properly cope with their emotions, all they know is just hit someone where you're mad. If you're frustrated, if someone did something to you and they are wrong, you hit them, or you just release your anger on them. So I think that starting from your early childhood and like really realizing how you were raised and how it is shaping you now and who you are today is key. So I said to say, like in my work, I'm a huge mental health advocate. So I look at I emphasize the importance of mental health for like my peers. When I was in high school, like that was a really, really big thing for me. I just moved on campus, so I didn't really get a chance to fully explain that to everyone and fully like put myself out there in regards to my mental health advocacy. But yeah, mental and social and emotional well-being is important, and I think plays a huge role in gun violence prevention tactics. And also getting in person, like letting people know, like, I'm here for you, I'm here, we can talk, there are resources available to you, we got you, like you're okay. There's other ways you can handle situations. So just being in person and showing up is important.
So would you be comfortable talking now about, because you both speak with a degree of passion about the work that you're involved in, but what brought you there? How did this subject grab your attention? And how did you get there? How did you get to where you are today?
So I can speak first. So firstly, like the 2008 recession, I love to joke with my sister, like ruined like my life. So I was not raised super rich, obviously. And so just coming out of that circumstance of like not having the resources to do some of the things that my classmates were doing, or just like going to thrift stores to get my clothes, those things really impacted the way that I viewed life, and changed my perspective. But also in 2016, I unfortunately lost a family friend very close to me to gun violence. And so that prompted me to start doing work. And then just also like being raised in the household that I was raised in, kind of impacted my decisions on how I wanted to respond to violence, versus how some of my siblings were responding to violence. I knew that I wanted to have a trajectory of my life. And if there was a way that I could kind of mitigate the things that I grew up witnessing, that I would do whatever it took possible. So when the Parkland shooting happened, I reached out to March for Lives Atlanta, and I got involved, really trying to bring attention to the fact that there are Black and Brown people on the south side of Atlanta, the north side of Atlanta, the east side of Atlanta, the west side of Atlanta, getting killed every day, that no one's really paying attention to, or that no one's really focusing on. So that's kind of what brought me to the work. And then also just more moving into anti-racism work. I go to a predominantly white institution. I'm one of 200, I want to say, I'm being generous when I say 200, I'm one of 200 Black students at the school. And so going to a predominantly Black high school to a predominantly white institution, I definitely wanted to kind of make an impact on my classmates, my peers, of understanding
not
what
want
racism,
poor Black people.
of understanding what racism is, and all the other things that come along with it.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Well, yeah, what brought you to this work? What brought you to the work that you engaged in?
I want to first start by saying I have a Black little brother. I then want to say my little brother plays football. He's played football all his life. I also am a really family-oriented person. Majority of my family is made up of Black men and Black boys. Seeing all of the rise in gun violence in Philadelphia over the past few years is really disheartening. About 5 weeks ago, one of my cousin was killed due to gun violence. And yeah, it said, my little brother, like some of his football games, like he can't play at certain fields. They don't allow them to. They aren't allowed to play certain teams and certain places he wants to go. My mom doesn't allow him to go. It's really sad. And he's young. He's just going to high school, and he should be able to have the chance to, get out there, play with his friends or play football. He plays football. My mom pays for him to play football. He plays football. He should be able to play football wherever he wants to and things like that. It's just, I'm doing this for my little brother.
How about you, Maati?
I'm the oldest of four, and it seems like I would just always had to look out. And then school and busing started, and they were saying they didn't want us in the school. Black folks, y'all go home. So I think that was the start of my fight, just being taught, actually being told you're less than and you're not wanted here. That I've been an advocate for youth since then. And then the increase in balance, what we call disproportionate minority contact and confinement, just watching those numbers, the unjust happening at schools where Black and brown kids are being locked up faster and more quicker than their white counterparts. The white counterparts get passes. Even the programs that we have, the counterparts get passes all the time, and our young people getting charged up. So that has made me in this to win this, to continue to stay in here and to look and build for measures that will help us in the future have a more peaceful community. Again, I believe beginning with the families. And you, my brother, what brought you to this work here?
I'm that wannabe thug that y'all should have been scared of. And see, that's how I grew up. I was that guy, and gang guy growing up in Philadelphia, did all of that stuff that you shouldn't do. Well, a lot of the stuff that you shouldn't do. And then I went in the Marine Corps because I grew up fighting. So the next natural thing was go overseas and fight other people. So I joined the Marines, Vietnam era. But because I was thuggish, I did really good in the Marine Corps. Maybe sounds weird, but because I was thuggish, I did good in the Marine Corps. Got in a fight with another Marine, I almost killed him, and so he went away on a stretcher. I went away in handcuffs, and I sat in solitary confinement for about 10 months. And during that time, that is when I scratched off violence as a conflict resolution tool for me, because I saw where it was taking me, right? I saw what was the potential to have in my life. So anyway, I got out of the Marine Corps, honorable discharge out of the Marine Corps, back to Philadelphia, and then a few years later, my son was arrested for murder. A young man named Gilbert Johnson. My son spent 5 years in prison. Conviction was overturned, and then my son was murdered before he got a chance to get out of prison, before he got a chance to come home. So my family life was just wrapped up in all of this violence, and at that point, I got very serious about. At that point, I got very serious about peace building, understanding what peace building is, what community peace building is, and trying to be a part of how do we begin the process of transforming the ways that we think about conflict and the ways that we think about resolving conflict, and finding ways to provide our communities, not just our young people, but finding ways to provide our communities with the knowledge necessary to know how to resolve conflict without violence. So I really appreciated the remarks that y'all were making a lot earlier about educating and about community, because I too believe that that's a huge piece. That's a huge piece, and it's not just about focusing focusing on our youth, because our youth are not the problem. The ways that we, as a nation and as a world, the ways that we choose to handle conflict, we demonstrated to our young people that violence is the way to resolve conflict. So when our young people engage in violence to resolve conflict, we can't then project this image onto them that they don't deserve. That's kind of what gives me passion and brought me into this work of peace building. I'm tired of projecting this image on our young people. Like, we had a peaceful world until this generation of young people came along, and we don't understand why they're so violent. But now we got to try to figure out ways to make them less violent or reduce violence. I don't like that approach. I don't like that idea, and I think it's projecting, and it kind of makes me angry. But that's why I want to use my view. So what do we do next? What's the solution?
I agree with what you said. There's a lack of community. Like, even before, back in the day, it's kind of crazy as a college freshman to say, but like before, when I was younger, there was a huge sense of community. Like, my mom used to say all the time, and she still say, every child needs a village. My grandpa block, that's where I spent all my time. That's still where I spend all my time. I'm always in my grandpa block. On my block, everybody knows everybody. It's, you got moms and aunts everywhere. Every corner you go to, every house on the block, everybody knows you. Everybody is looking out for you. It's not no sense of community anymore. You don't see that too often, and I don't know. It's less. I don't know. I think we need some more community. It's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think that, especially like, I don't know about anyone else on this call, but growing up, like, mental health was not something that's super talked about in our community. And it's kind of like taboo to even try to go to therapy or to like express your issues, because then, especially like if your parents grew up in a different way than you, or that you're more privileged to have something that they didn't have, it's like, well, I did this and I didn't have this and this, so you can do it and you have the resources to do it now. And I think that if our community really was to take mental health seriously, and to really talk about what we're feeling, and to talk about, things that happen in our communities, and to talk about like mental illness in our communities, and to address it and to really be candid with it, that could definitely change the playing field. As well as kind of what Erin was saying, building community and having people look out for you. I think that that comes with kind of like a societal thing in general. Like, I feel like our entire society is in like a fearful kind of state right now, just because you never know, regardless of where you are, like what's going to pop off. Like, you could be in a shopping mall and then someone pulls up with a gun and you're dead. And so I think that that has a lot to do with the way that we view community now as well. So yeah, I don't think that there's like a one size fits all solution to solving violence, but I definitely think like a combination of education, increased resources in our communities, as well as therapy being more accessible, and therapy maybe even being included on insurance, because it's not for a lot of people. That could definitely kind of solve some of the issues that we have as people.
Can I say something else too? Something sparked my attention as you said. I think we need to bring back parenting as well. Like, a lot of parents are not aware and what's going on in their child's life. They're not actively involved. Before, it used to be like, even I keep referring to football, y'all, because I'm a football sister at the end of the day. Even like, there used to be like teen moms and stuff like that, like moms who would just show up with oranges during the practices, or oranges during the half times, during the games, or even at school, you would have some parents involved, like parents that will come up and show up to all of the trips as chaperones and show up like talking to the teachers, like, hey, what's going on with my child in school? What's going on? Like, how have they been acting and stuff like that? Parents, I'm not seeing that anymore. So I think just more involvement. And then if parents are showing up again and more active, I think those conversations like, hey, how was your day? Or just sitting, having dinner with each other, those small things really play a huge part in children's well-being, emotionally and mentally. Like just having someone check in with you every day, like, are you okay? Or every other day or something, like just see what's going on in their life. You never know. So bring back parenting.
And and I hear that from so many I have worked with. Somebody hit you, hit them back. They're bigger than you, pick up something and hit them, they say. And they have really no other alternatives that they haven't learned. I had a young girl, we were just talking, and she had told she had told everybody every time she see the girl, she was going to kick her butt. So I was talking, but it was like, oh, it is boy stuff. And I'm like, it's not even worth it. Why would you want to do that? And, and this, she goes, well, what am I supposed to say now? I was like, well, tell him you changed your mind. Tell him something. Miss Yvonne said that was crazy. But she was like at a loss. I done told everybody I'm going to fight, so I need to fight. So learning how to use our words, and as we talked about being in this restorative program, I mean, I've seen wonders. Not that our young people believe it. In the conversation just the other day, they was like, no, violence, I don't know if it's going to ever end. But we have to start somewhere. I truly do believe the parenting is definitely a key, essential place. And also, at school, our education, a lot of the fight and disputes and conflicts happens there in school. And again, it has been made mention to how they're responding, how the discipline happens. Young people are getting mad, and they get mad like a teacher gives them detention, so they don't go. Then the teacher gives them another detention, and they still don't go because they don't believe that they deserve this. So they haven't had a chance to even defend themselves or debate the cause. So now they get suspended. So they're being pushed out of school. Here we go, that school to prison pipeline. So it's real. So it is a both, an and an or thing. And also, I think what's most important or highly important as well is building up our young people's self-confidence. Again, having that personal value where they liking themselves and loving themselves. Because I think when you like yourself and love yourself, you begin to like and deal and appreciate other people more. So, but if you walk around here hating and being miserable, hating life, anybody gonna rub you the wrong way. So being able to find that peace in whatever it is that we, in ways that we can find peace within, is also an essential component. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good. You hit on something that was part of my transformation, for lack of a better word. That part about caring, because it wasn't that I got soft or I got namby-pamby. It was that I started caring what was going to happen to me. That's why I'm not going to fight you, because I care what's going to happen to me. That's why I'm not going to let your words draw me into a fight. Why? Because I care what's going to happen to me. And so, yeah, I think you were right on the mark with that building of self-esteem, self-worth, and self-care. Because I think the reality is, if I don't care what's going to happen to me, I will do anything to anybody else because I just don't care what's going to happen, right? And if I have a fatalistic outlook on my own life, like again, I it puts me in a situation where I just may do anything to anybody because I just don't care. I think my life is going down the tubes anyway. I think I may be killed or shot at some point anyway. So because that's what I think that's going to happen to me, I don't care. I'll just do anything to anybody. So yeah, self-esteem, self-worth, sense of caring about yourself, all of that has to happen. Y'all mentioned education. So my next question is, how do we get there? Because I think that the education has to be comprehensive. I was part of a camp this summer, right? It was a Peace Builders camp. And it was Peace Builders camp. It was a week long. I only did one day there. I was talking with the kids about something, but it was a week-long camp, and they had about 12 to 15 kids there. So it was a week-long camp for 12 to 15 kids. And while that's great, it's not comprehensive, right? Because one of the things that I think needs to change is the way we, as a community, and I think we have to start there, the way we think about conflict and the way we think about resolving conflict. So, and what I mean by comprehensive, peace building has to happen at home. It has to happen at church. It has to be a part of school curriculum. It has to be a part of if you have a community center, there has to be some peace building work going on in the community center, and not just as a summer program, but all the time. That's what I think should, because in my opinion, that's the only thing that I think has the potential to bring about a societal change.
I think that definitely our school systems are in for a huge overhaul of like what's being taught and how it's being taught. I also think another thing is like just looking at how many teachers are leaving the field of teaching and blaming it on the behavior of the kids and the way they were brought up versus kind of, I guess, even tailoring their teaching style to the kids is really important. I also think like punitive measures don't really work in school. And that's another thing that like really needs to be addressed. Like, does ISS work? Does OSS work? Does detention work? Does silent lunch work? These things, from like speaking from my own experiences, because I was a really bad kid. I would get into fights, I would cuss, like I was a bad kid. But those things just made me more resentful of the person that was supposed to be teaching me. And had I continued down that path, I probably would have ended up in years-long turmoil through a system, right? And like I had a sibling who went through the entire like school to prison pipeline, like got expelled from school, went to youth detention center, and then had a life in and out of our prison system. And really looking at the punitive measures that I guess are deemed as acceptable. Even like, I remember when I was in elementary school, they would make us stand on the wall like we were in prison, or like walk the fence. Those things kind of condition us to be in a mindset that we are not worthy of redemption, because when your time is over, it's just over and you get to go back to class, but they don't really address what happened. There's no one to kind of ease you in and out if that's what they were going to do, of that transition of being isolated from your peers and missing out on class time. And so I think that's a big thing. And then also just changing our laws on like what we deem as truancy, right? If your parent can't get you to school, or if the school bus is like, if you miss the school bus and your parent can't get you to school, and then you accumulate X many absences, now you're both in trouble. And then it's like a bigger thing. I think that all of these things kind of feed into the educational system that like people aren't necessarily addressing, but also just what's taught in schools. Maybe like even teaching conflict resolution, because in my experience going through like the public school system, that was not a thing. I was not taught how to communicate with my peers
Right.
in a productive way, which is why I kept getting into fights. And so that ultimately had to come from home, of like, you can't hit people because they make you mad.
You nailed it there, Nurah. That, especially that part about rather than, because for those of us who are older, like myself, waste our time badgering young people about their culture. We just literally waste our time. We attack young people about the games they play or whatever, and we lose them. And I think there's so much more value in just not doing that, but providing our communities with conflict resolution training, so that everybody in the community understands that there are ways to resolve conflict that just literally don't involve violence at all, that you actually can resolve the conflict, you actually can talk things out. Maati does some work with people in the community in a process that they call circle process. Tell us something about that, Maati.
Yes, at community peace circles. What's really surprising to me too, I found out about community conferencing and peace circles from the juvenile justice list. Hello, I was looking at some things that had what was it for? It was the youth aid panel, and they had other options that they do for community. It was like community conferencing. I said, why are we doing community conferencing? Circles where people, if it's a diversion program or if it's to address conflict, those who are on different sides, those persons who've harmed and those who have done the harm, come together in agreement to talk about it, to resolve it, so that either fines are unpaid or no one is charged and has to go to jail. So we have community residents and youth who have taken a 3 to 5 day training in the restorative process. The restorative beginning, first of all, looking at the paradigm of what restorative justice really is of everybody's voice, particularly those who have been harmed, having a say so and how it's repaired. And one of the things Nurah mentioned, what happens outside the school and the classroom and being on the wall and then bringing them back in and not talking about it. One of the principles of restorative practices is the reintegration, to bring them back in, to welcome our young people back into the fold. Even when they're coming out of our system, most of our young people come back into school and just back in with no integration, no welcoming, no understanding between the students who might have been there when they left and those that became. So we are actively meeting monthly to keep our young people and adults in the practice as we are waiting to get cases and help resolve the issues in our communities and in our school. But even amongst ourselves, we are using it with siblings and parents, and youth have been able to open up and talk better within their communications, having had the circle process where listening becomes essential, where you don't respond just to respond, you listen, and we say listen from the heart, and you don't talk all on top of one another. Because what mostly happens, especially in conflict, we begin attacking one another, the character of the person, and whatever the issue was, it gets all lost because we done got the name point and blaming it and name calling. So this helps us to address the issues that are at heart and to help to repair and restore the relationships that become strained and broken in conflict. So I'm excited, and I believe I have seen miracles with the peace circles. We believe that the circle, those of us that are into it, love it, and have just seen change, transformation, that people get it. So I am a strong promoter, advocator, educator, teacher for that forever. I'm sold. It would have saved me a long time ago because I was a fighter right with you, Nurah, all through school.
Yeah, me too. I was living in Pennsylvania. I was sitting with a group of people. We were interested in talking about building a peace builder program. So we would meet every Wednesday, and we were sitting in this diner having our regular Wednesday meeting, talking about what the curriculum could look like, what it should look like, and so forth. And when one of the people in the group got a phone call from the church, from the school, that their son was in a fight. So now we're in a meeting talking about building a peace builder program, and the son of one of the people in the meeting, he gets a call, but your son is in a fight. So he goes to the school, and coincidentally, he's telling the principal that I was in a meeting about this, and about building a peace builder program, and that principal literally asked him, how soon can you bring something like that into our school? And so he came back to us. We put that, because we already were working at it pretty good. We put that program together. We got it into the school, and the school was so hungry for it that they didn't make it an after-school program, and they didn't make it optional. They gave us a slot every Wednesday. They gave us a 90-minute slot every Wednesday, and we had the auditorium, right? So they actually and this was a middle school. They gathered up. One week we would do 7th graders. The next week we would do 8th graders. The next week after that, we would do 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. But anyway, and we had the whole auditorium, all the classes, and we did the Peace Builder program basically as forum theater, right? So it's not us preaching at young people, telling them, oh, this is what you need to do, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it worked out real good. The reason I bring that up is because I think that we are too timid right now with our approach to peace building, because I think that our community wants to hear something different. And I think that if we go into our community and say, this is what we think should happen, this is how we think we can make it happen, can we get support? I think we may get some more. I think we may be surprised, and we might wind up getting more support than we think we could get, because we were certainly shocked that not only did the school bring us in, but they brought us in during the school day. They didn't make it an after-school program, and they gave us the auditorium, and they brought it. And because we were doing it in forum theater, the teachers actually got involved. So it's the young people, and so anyway, it worked out very good. I think that that's something that we can begin thinking about. Something that I am going to begin thinking about here in Atlanta, where I am, because I'm not doing that right now, because I did that when I was in Pennsylvania. But I'm going to test the waters here where I am and see if my daughter's middle school would be interested in something like that. And I'll check with the community center also to see if they'd be interested in a peace builder program, because we got to start somewhere. You're muted, Maati.
So yes, creating that awareness and understanding and education, because as much as we can be hyped about this, there's still a lot of naysayers out there that believe, nope, everybody needs to be punished. There's no redemption. I mean, or it's because of their pockets. I mean, there's something to be said about maintaining the status quo. I have put people in 2 camps lately, those that don't know and want to know more, and those who just want to maintain the status quo. So educating and raising awareness and getting more people enlightened to how restorative practices, how conflict resolution, how resolving issues peacefully, all of that can be helpful. And redemption work is definitely part of the work, educating, but creating that awareness and understanding that it is possible, that change can happen, that our world does not have to remain as violent as it is right now. Yes. So, and we are getting close to our time. And what's the last questions?
Wait, I want to give a book.
Thulani?
I want to give a book. The book I want to give is Restorative Discipline for Schools. That's the title of the book. It's a small book. It's actually called The Little Book of Restorative Discipline for Schools. And both Maati and I know the author. But Restorative Discipline for Schools, and there's another one called The Anatomy of Peace. But Restorative Discipline for Schools is one of the reasons why that book came to mind for me, Yep, that's it. One of the reasons why that book came to mind for me is because you both were speaking quite a bit about school. Yep, that's it. You both were speaking, Nurah and Erin, you were speaking quite a bit about school and the approach to discipline in schools and how it actually is counterproductive.
So, and as we prepare to close, we're getting close to our hour. Ladies, I'd just like to know, in this journey towards creating a less violent world, what long-term changes do you hope to see in the ways society addresses conflicts and empowers young people?
I hope to see a change in our education system and the content that we're getting in schools. I think we need to learn some financial literacy, teach us how to manage our money, teach us emotional literacy so we can properly communicate and express how we feel, teach us to be comfortable in our skin so we don't feel jealous or we don't feel like we need to meet anyone else's standards, especially any other race's standards. Teach us some, like you said, some restorative conflict solutions and resolutions. Teach us like community, like the importance of everybody always, and then nowadays, I'm sorry, I know we closing. Nowadays, everybody want to say like they don't like having friends and they don't want no friends and they're a loner and they're by themselves. Like having community and having a village and having people to support you and be there for you and people for you to be there for and support is the whole purpose of life. And I think that's something that is a very, very beautiful thing. And I think it needs to be more normalized, like teach us more community building in schools.
I love that.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
No, please
No need to be sorry.
I love that answer. Bring back community.
Yeah, everything that Erin said, on point. And then also I would say like, oh man, I lost it. But I would say definitely kind of engaging with people on a daily basis. So kind of like building community, but addressing, that's what I would say, addressing issues more candidly, and speaking about race in this country more candidly, speaking about the way that race ties into our education system and how it's taught more candidly, and how white supremacy and all these other things tie into our daily lives and how we interact as Black people and as brown people, and how we move on about our lives, especially even for white people, how white supremacy and white privilege affects them, and how we can all use it to kind of reestablish the way that the world works.
Hey, could we invite you all to come back and talk more about that piece that you just named, Nurah, because one of our challenges is figuring out ways to interrupt white male dominance, and how to build sustainable alliances between those of us who have been historic targets of oppression, historic targets of white dominance, because all of that plays into what we're talking about, how we've been taught to be violent with one another, because in many of our cultures, the methods of violence were not ours until white society basically kind of demanded that the culture of the colonizer be accepted as a standard. So would you all be willing to come back at some other point, at some other time, and talk with us some more? I really loved having both of y'all.
I got a final question though that ain't there, and I think it's important. I just want to know, despite with all of this, what do you do? Where do you find joy in life? How do you find joy, bring joy in your life?
I think that's a perfect closing question, a beautiful one. I think often like with violence and everything, like especially like my approach, like with my family and the people really, really close to me, I always get them to see like I always remind them that your perspective on everything is most important. So if I'm just coming over one of my male family members' houses, I'm bringing stuff for us to paint. I'm bringing stuff for us to crochet. I'm bringing stuff for us to find some activity or something to help us stay present and to find joy and contentment in the little things in life, because I think that's really important. And I remind them the importance and the value of time. You don't get that back. So just making sure you're spending every second enjoying your time and making sure you're having a positive perspective on things, because it's easy to let one little small thing ruin your day and you don't know if you'll get another one. So try to remind people that of that.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a dance minor at my college. So doing activities that I really enjoy, like dancing or watching something that has nothing to do with any of the topics that weigh heavily on me is a really good outlet. And I think it's obviously like we're Black, so we face discrimination every day in some way, shape, or form, especially myself. I go to a PWI. So I'm oftentimes fighting violence, even in the ways of like words or snarky remarks. So really like taking the time to decompress from all of that and to focus on myself and to kind of just forget where I am for a second is really something that keeps me grounded and centered.
Okay. Thulani?
Maati will tell you every time I do this, I'm always telling somebody a book they should read. So I do. I have another book for you. The book is called Weathering. The book is called Weathering. And I think every African American female should read this book, but I think it's great for everybody. The book is called Weathering, and the author's last name is Geronimus. What brings me joy is that's it. What brings me joy is having conversations like this. I love when I'm able to sit with people who everybody likes being around people who think like them, right? So this kind of stuff brings me joy. But I sew. I like sewing, and I like doing stuff that's creative. So my creative outlet is sitting down and making some time to sew.
I say, and I like cooking. And then I like walking to burn off all that cooking. So I do me some walking. I'm gonna shout out for girltrek.org. Y'all check it out, ladies. The largest Black health organization for women. So yeah, that's what brings me joy.
All right, well, I guess that brings us to a close. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks all of y'all for participating. Y'all can support us at rootsofjustice.org. You can support Nurah. Nurah, you're still with March for Our Lives?
I am not, but all support to them would be great because I do give my input every now and then.
Well, we will try to get your information up on our Roots of Justice thing. Clearly, I'm not the guy to do that, but somebody will. How about you, Erin? How can we support you?
Everyone, I would really love if you will all support this small organization in Philadelphia. It's called Collective Climb. We have, I'm a part of the RCP, Restorative Community Project, and there, I believe, I don't remember how many weeks it was. It felt like forever, and I wanted back so bad. It was I don't know timelines, but we were able to do like inner child healing work. We were able to, it was like conflict resolution tactics that they gave us. It was so much. And it really showed us the value and the importance of our mental health and emotional well-being. I really recommend that program to all youth. I believe the maximum age is 19, I believe. And then they also have something for juvenile justice for those who, I'm sorry, y'all.
Who get caught up in the justice system, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yo, please support
I'm a partner with Collective Climb as well. Yes.
Yes.
Indeed.
Thank you all.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good night, everyone.